In the motorcycling world, the popular saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover," should be changed to, "Don't judge a bike by its specs." Yes, astronomical horsepower numbers and feather-light weight figures may sound impressive and even be impressive, but every now and then a motorcycle comes along that doesn't have the numbers on its side and looks rather pedestrian, and yet when you ride it, it turns out to be greater than the sum of its parts. And I must admit that when I heard that Honda was putting out a Scrambler, the CL500, based on the Rebel 500 Cruiser, I thought, yawn, a Rebel 500 with a high pipe masquerading as an off-roader. Next. But then I got to test one for a week and decided, damn it, if they're going to call it a Scrambler, then let's take it scrambling and see what this thing can do. And wouldn't you know it, it scrambled fine, as well as being an excellent pavement machine. Which I suppose makes sense. You see, originally Scramblers were just road motorcycles modified to play in the dirt. It wasn't until Scramblers became quite popular that the manufacturers decided to start making dedicated dirt bikes. So in a way, it makes sense to base a Scrambler on a road-going machine like the Rebel. It's truer to history than basing it on, say, a CRF300L. And besides tearing up the twisties and generally using the bike as a great runabout, I also got myself into a little bit of trouble with this one. More than a bit, in fact, because I took it on a trail it really had no business riding and almost got stuck. To hear the sordid details, stay tuned. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. First, the specs, the ones I wasn't that impressed with. The Honda CL500 is powered by a 471cc 180-degree parallel twin engine which produces 46 horsepower and 32 pound-feet of torque. The bike weighs 423 pounds wet, has non-adjustable forks with 5.9 inches of travel and spring preload adjustable twin shocks with 5.7 inches of give, a smallish 12.1 liter tank, non-switchable ABS brakes, and costs $6,800 US MSRP or $9,100 Canadian, with $900 of that being freight and PDI. You would be forgiven in thinking that all this sounds underwhelming compared to the whiz-bang tech marvels out there. I did too. Honda's 471 parallel twin occupies a strange middle ground in power and performance between the smaller 3 to 400cc motorcycles and the 650 to 800cc class like the new Hornet or the Yamaha MT-07. But Honda, being the 800-pound gorilla of the motorcycling world, makes up its own rules, and these 471cc bikes are popular and well loved, especially the CB500X adventure bike. This engine provides enough horsepower and torque to comfortably cruise above the highway speed limit all day, yet still be approachable by a new rider. It is largely smooth, but can get buzzy through the grips in the upper rev range, especially on wide open throttle. It is plenty quick and entertaining on a twisty road and pulls briskly up to about 90 miles per hour or 140 kilometers per hour in stock form. After that, the top end peters out, and the only way you'll see 100 miles per hour or 160 kilometers per hour is down a steep hill. Still, on the twisties in central Ontario, that's all you need to have a blast. The 46 horsepower keeps the bike A2 compliant in Europe, and my wife Brooke, who rides a less powerful motorcycle, felt immediately at home riding the CL. It feels peppy and fun, but not intimidating to a beginner like the MT-07 or Hornet 750 might. It's one of those bikes that can make a noob comfortable but also be fun for a rider like me who has been riding for a quarter century. For me, it's more about the bends than all-out straight-line speed. Which brings us to handling. For a motorcycle with long-ish, largely non-adjustable budget suspension, I found the handling to be pretty solid. This is a bike that can corner hard while staying composed, and despite plenty of available lean angle, I found myself dragging pegs and having an absolute blast in the bends. The generous travel soaked up the rougher roads, and only the biggest bumps at the highest of speeds made their way to my butt. The ABS brakes worked well on pavement and quickly hold the CL500 down from high speeds. More on them later. The seating position on this bike has you bolt upright, great for looking down the road and for the dirt, but at high speeds you become a parachute. If you're going to ride highway speeds a lot, a small windshield to keep the wind off your chest is a must. Seat height is 31.1 inches, which Brooke at 5'7" or 170 centimeters tall found pretty accessible, but definitely taller than the Rebel 500 Cruiser on which the CL is based. The seat is fine for shorter rides, but definitely on the firm side. It is thin and stylish looking, but spend 4 hours plus in the saddle at one go and your butt will be begging for a rest. And you can spend a long time in the saddle even with only 12 liters in the tank, because this engine is extremely fuel efficient and is rated at 65 miles per gallon, giving this motorcycle a theoretical range of about 200 miles or 320 kilometers. In reality, you'll be filling up at about 250k or 150 miles. Could this be a touring bike? Maybe with a big windshield or thicker seat, though its CB500X sibling would be a lot better at a cross-country tour out of the box. Now, this is a Scrambler and the styling has to reflect that fact. The look is definitely reminiscent of the Rebel with a similar fuel tank and frame design. However, the CL is much more athletic looking, sitting higher and sporting a 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wheel combo. The high pipe looks cool with an aluminum heat shield, though judging by the scratches on the heat shield and passenger peg, one of the previous testers had a little too much fun on this bike. Colors: blue, orange, black, and the green I was riding. I like the green best, and the dash is stylishly round and includes a fuel gauge and gear indicator. There are definitely some cool looking touches on the CL, though when I first saw pictures and read the spec sheet, my impression was that Honda designed a street bike with some off-road styling cues and called it a Scrambler. I thought, no way is this thing going to be able to handle off-road. But I love riding in the dirt, and if you're going to give me a bike to test and call it a Scrambler, I'm gonna go scrambling. And so I tried it on gravel and it did fine. I tried it on some rougher dirt and it handled it no problem. I took it on twisty logging roads and again, it was chugging along fine with the largely pavement biased tires keeping the thing planted and steady. And this is where I got overconfident, because I came to a place where the logging road ended and an ATV trail began. I had just been on that trail with a bunch of friends on my dirt bike 2 days earlier and remembered that it was one of the least demanding trails we had done that day and that my enduro bike rolled through it easily and without any problems. So I thought, yeah, I think the CL should be fine, and decided to chance it. And at first all was fine. You can stand on the CL, but it's not as comfortable at that as my dirt bike, so I just chugged through most obstacles mostly sitting down. I took it slow. On an enduro bike you can bomb this stuff, but that has more than twice the suspension and ground clearance. The CL500 without exhaust hanging underneath and no stock skid plate requires way more finesse to pick your way through the rocks. Down the steep downhills I was on the brakes and paddling my feet, afraid to damage a borrowed bike. Fortunately, the low seat height saved me from dropping it on a few occasions. And here is where I want to get back to the brakes, because something strange happened on this ride. ABS is not good in off-road situations as it can engage and start clacking you down a steep rocky hill uncontrollably. On this ride, I noticed that the ABS light started blinking and the ABS turned off at some point, front and back. I don't know if Honda had some programmer code in an algorithm which turns off the ABS if certain braking conditions appear, but if they did, they certainly have not publicized it. I was grateful for the feature on this bike, but would prefer a button that simply turns it off like on my Tenere 700. However, Honda's lawyers probably prevented them from including such a button on the CL. The ABS stayed off while I stalled the bike or turned it off with the kill switch, but as soon as I turned it off with the key and then turned it back on, it reverted to its on setting. As for the ride, it was slow going and nerve-wracking. Street tires, limited ground clearance, and no underneath protection meant that I was nervously tiptoeing through the more rocky parts. For the off-roaders out there are bash plates available for this model, and I would have appreciated one on this trail. A couple of times that exhaust touched down underneath and had me worried. And then there were the water crossings.
This is going to be nasty. Alright, let's go this way. Oh, yikes. Alright. Walk this sucker out. Whoa. Gotta cross. What's going on over here? All right. Only a few more lakes, and we're through. This is just easier. Damn. Somehow we got through that.
So is the CL500 a dirt bike? Obviously not, but no one who buys it expects it to be. You could put a bash plate and engine guards on it and equip it with some knobbies for the rough stuff, but it's always going to be a 400 plus pound machine. Definitely not an enduro which can bomb these types of trails all day with little effort. However, as I got closer to the end of the trail and things started smoothing out, the speed started to pick up, and by the end I was riding with confidence and style. And in addition to being capable of mild to moderate dirt, the CL performs surprisingly well on pavement. So the new Honda Scrambler is a perfect example of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. There's no single spec that stands out, but together the parts combine into a motorcycle that is friendly and approachable to the novice while being plenty entertaining to the experienced rider. A bike that can rip up twisty roads and mildly challenging ATV trails, and a bike that will last forever as long as you keep up with the maintenance. This engine has been around for a long time and is bulletproof. The CL500 is a good addition to Honda's 500 lineup. It's not just a CB500F styled up like a Scrambler, but an all-new motorcycle with some pavement and off-road chops. If you get this as your first bike, it will grow with you and your skills. And if you're experienced, you can still have plenty of fun on it. If it was mine, I'd put on a skid plate and small windshield, plus a pipe to give it a couple more horses on the top end. Then I'd go scraping the pegs and blasting the twisties and dirt roads around here, a pretty sweet deal. In the Scrambler world, only the Royal Enfield 411 Scram is less expensive, and some of the offerings from Ducati and Triumph can cost many thousands more. So what do you think of the CL500? Did you take a look at it initially and, like me, think that it was a mere styling exercise? If so, I hope this video changed your mind. Are you considering it for yourself or someone in your family? Which Scrambler is your favorite and why? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, scramble safe, and may the spokes be with you.